All right, we had a testimonial come through. This was a couple days ago. You could see March 10th. Today is March 16th. So this was about 6 days ago. And I thought that I would just share a little bit more context on this situation. I'm not going to dive into the specific tactics and strategies that we use to accomplish this, but I do think that there are a few things that this family shared in particular that I think will be helpful for other families. So let's dive in. So she says, I hope you're doing well. I want to thank you for your advice. We've received 14 D1 offers since we started working with you about 10 months ago. 9 of the offers are for Power 4 teams. We're extremely excited. So a couple things I want to mention here. The first is that this is actually a very unique opportunity for us to work with a highly talented athlete. Now, most of the families that we work with are not Power 4 caliber. They're typically mid to low level Division 1, D2, D3, NAIA, junior college athletes, mostly because Power 4 caliber athletes usually don't really need to work with us. Their kids are just so good that they're going to get found regardless. And it's the other athletes who are not necessarily as talented who need help getting that exposure. And so I mentioned that to this mom. She is the sweetest person in the world. She's from Texas. She has a super thick accent. And I told her that she probably didn't need to work with us, but she said that she wanted to. She felt like we could maximize her opportunities and sort of make her life easier, which I think she's right on. And so I'm pretty proud of what we've done here, 14 D1 offers. And actually, I talked to her not yesterday, but on Friday. And that number is now 17. And to be honest with you, they could have 40 offers if they wanted to, but they're going to commit long before they ever get to that point. Now, another reason that we were able to accomplish something like this is because they started early. And they came to us sophomore year. And most families end up coming to us like junior or senior year, but it is super helpful to get started earlier in the process. So if your kid is a sophomore, don't wait until junior year when they hit the legal recruiting dates to kick everything into gear. It's already going to be a little bit of an uphill battle at that point. And so for a family like this, there's 2 real reasons why it's helpful to start early. The first is that you are the first ones to get on these college coaches' lists. They haven't put their lists together yet. And so you end up being at the top of that list, at the top of that board, which means that you're going to get first crack, which is very helpful. But the second reason is just that we have a lot more time to do everything that we need to do, or you, even if you're going to go do this on your own, try doing this on your own. The earlier that you start, the easier it is because you have more time to build that foundation. So when those important dates hit and you get into the heart of junior year, then you're able to focus on exposure and building relationships with coaches that have expressed interest instead of trying to get your video dialed in, getting your social media up and running, all those things. So it's helpful when you start earlier. Now, let's keep going. She says, my advice for other families is to keep sending DMs and videos on X, emails, or whatever you advise for their particular sport, even when the coaches are not responding or you are only receiving a like or thank you here and there. A few things that I want to mention here. The first is that she's right. All of these different platforms work differently depending on the sport that your kid plays. Now, this kid plays football, but we've worked with 13 different sports. Now, the funny thing is that 80% of recruiting is actually roughly the same across all of these sports, right? Your kid needs to be good enough to play in college. You need proof that they're good enough, and then you need exposure. You need enough college coaches to see that proof. As long as you have those things, your kid is going to get recruited no matter what sport your kid plays. The only difference is how those things are taken care of for your kid's specific sport. The evidence might look a little bit different. The exposure might be better on one platform than another, depending on your kid's sport. I'll give you an example. This family plays football, and that's why she's putting a huge emphasis specifically on X, is because that's where a ton of football recruiting happens. Now, we have seen a little bit of a shift. We've had some success with football players hitting some schools on Instagram as well. But for football, Twitter is like where it happens, right? But when you talk about something like soccer, for instance, your proof is going to change and your exposure is going to change. The proof is going to change because you need full game video, right? Coaches who already know that your kid is good enough, they're going to want to see full game video of your kid. That's not true in baseball. That's not true in, football. And then in terms of exposure, like Twitter, sure, is going to be helpful in soccer, and I recommend that you do it, but it's not going to be the main way that you get on coaches' radars. And so she's totally right that you need to be doing whatever it is for your sport that works the best. Now, the second piece of this, she goes, even when the coaches are not responding or you're only receiving a like or a thank you here and there. If a coach has never responded to you before, then sure, there's a decent chance that they're just not interested. But if a coach has expressed some sort of interest to you before, then you should not necessarily expect them to text you, call you, respond to every one of your follow-ups every single week. It's still possible that they are interested in you, even if they're not doing those things. And actually, we've had 2 other examples aside from this family that have come through just in the last week where this has been prevalent. So we have our Telegram chat. It's where all our families are inside. We're able to bounce ideas off each other, give feedback, answer questions, stuff like that. And a family shared that there was a school there that they had contacted and they got a response and they were interested. And so the family was following up with them, building a relationship with them, but this school didn't respond for 3 months. And a lot of families at that point would say, they're not interested, we should stop doing this. In fact, the family asked, hey, should we kind of quit doing this? And we just decided, no, we should continue to build this relationship, even if they're not participating on the other side. And what happens literally just a few days ago, the family said that the head coach reached out and said, thank you so much for all of these updates. They've been so helpful. We'd love to have you on campus. And now we're really getting somewhere with this school. And so just because you're not getting responses from these schools every single week doesn't necessarily mean that you're not making progress. Now, of course, you want to balance that. There's for sure a way to annoy college coaches, and a lot of players do that. And so you have to be smart about how you do it. But it's so critical to understand that just because a coach doesn't respond to you for 1 week or 2 weeks or 24 hours doesn't necessarily mean they're not interested. There's some coaches, or I should say parents rather, who think that if a coach doesn't respond within 48 hours, then they must not be interested, because if they were, they would respond right away. That's not true. Recruiting is very different from how you might expect regular communication to go. Coaches have a ton of stuff on their plate. A lot of them are not even, loving recruiting. They don't enjoy recruiting. They love to coach. And a lot of recruiting is communication. And let's just face it, some coaches are better at communication than others. And so just because you don't get a response in 48 hours or after 2 weeks or something like that, if this is a coach that has expressed interest before, it doesn't mean they're not interested anymore. Maybe it does, but not necessarily, right? All right, let's keep reading here. So she says, I know it seems like they're not paying attention, but they are. As soon as football season was over, all of them plus colleges we were not even in contact with started reaching out to him. All of the coaches saw the videos we were posting, messaging, and emailing. Keep doing the work, even though it doesn't seem like it's working. It'll pay off. So one thing I want to mention here is that she says all of the coaches saw the videos we were posting, messaging, and emailing. What she's referencing here is what I call multi-platform communication. It means that there are multiple platforms and ways that college coaches can learn about your kid. And this is really important. This is truly marketing, right? That no matter where a coach goes, they see your kid. And so this family was posting content on Twitter, sending DMs on Twitter, following coaches on Twitter, sending emails, having their coach reach out to schools, attending camps. Like, they were doing all the things. There were so many different ways that coaches could come across their kid. And part of the reason this is important, a lot of times I'll see a family and they'll say, well, we only got 2 responses via email, but they're not doing anything else. And what could have happened is they might have gotten 2 responses via email, but then they might have gotten 1 response from content, 1 response from DMs. Now they're up to 4 schools. Their coach introduces them to 2 schools. Now they're up to 6. At a showcase, they get 1. Now they're up to 7. And so they dramatically increase the amount of coaches that are interested because they increased the number of platforms and ways that coaches can find out about their kid. And so this is really important because I think some parents get tunnel vision on one specific platform. And in some cases, yes, it is valuable to dial in one channel, but we really want to achieve multi-platform outreach. And that leads me to something that I wrote an email about to our email list, which if you're not on, you absolutely should be. And I was talking about the importance of frequency. Frequency is the number of times that a college coach hears about your kid. And you need way more frequency than you think to get on college coaches' radars. There's a lot of families who send 1 message or 2 messages, they don't get a response, or that relationship is not moving forward in any meaningful way, and they think, oh, the coach must not be interested. Not necessarily. You just didn't get enough frequency. And the funny thing is that there are other industries where this is widely understood. Like if you're in sales at any point, you know about the touch points, right? 7 touch points or 11 touch points to get a sale. But all of a sudden, when we start talking about college recruiting, families think that 2 touch points and they don't have a scholarship offer means that the school must not be interested. And that's not the case. You need as much frequency as you can possibly get. And I find that a lot of parents underestimate the amount of frequency that's required to get the interest and offers that they want. Now, what's funny also about this family, look at the last sentence. We keep doing the work even though it doesn't seem like it's working. Keep doing the work even though it doesn't seem like it's working, it'll pay off. So it's really easy to look at a family like this who has 14 D1 offers, 9 from Power 4 programs, and think, well, yeah, the process must have been really easy for them because their kid is super talented. But it wasn't that long ago that this family was starting to feel the pressure a little bit because they had no offers and nothing was really moving forward. And it's so easy to look at someone else's situation and assume that it must be easy because their kid is really talented or because they play for a prestigious team or some other factor, and you blaming the fact that you don't have interest in offers because you don't have that same advantage. And that is not cool, because the reality is there's so many athletes who have less advantages than your kid who are getting more interest in offers simply because they know how to work the system. And so don't look at other people and play the comparison game and say, well, yeah, it must be nice for them. I've never met a parent who wasn't concerned about the future of their kid, regardless of how much interest they have, how many offers they have, how quickly this is all happening. Every single family is nervous until they sign. And it's just the way that it is. And so let's just accept that and say, okay, we know that it's going to be hard, but let's figure out what the system is so that we can actually methodically make this happen and not just chalk it up to luck and hope that it happens. And so I think it's valuable to know that even families that are like this struggle in the process. So it's been an absolute blast to work with this family. They've been amazing. I'm excited to see where they end up. Obviously, we're not done yet, but this is pretty cool. And it's fun to work with super talented players because, the majority of our families are not like that. And I still love working with those families. It's still super fun. But every once in a while, it's nice to get something like this where you get a ton of offers. So if you're the parent of a high school athlete and you're like, hey, we need some help in recruiting, I'd love for you to show me what this family did. I can't promise that you're going to get results like this because obviously the kid is very talented, but I could show you the same system that we showed them and hundreds of other families. So if that's something that you're interested in, you can click the link in the description. It'll take you to a page where you can learn a little more about our program and what we do, and then you can schedule a call and we'll walk you through all the details. So if that's of interest, you can go check that out. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video.